Hello and welcome to Twin Talk. This is Angie and I'm here with my sister Joy. For the record, we are in Joy's classroom and it is summer, so class is not in session, but just down here helping Joy remove some stuff, and we thought while we're down here we might as well get a podcast in. Before we begin the discussion of our book for this episode, I do want to mention that there is a new feature on Buzzsprout, which is our host for our podcast, and it's called Fan Mail. And it is located in the description section of each episode. So let me tell you how easy this is. All you have to do is click on it. So you click on Fan Mail, and you can send us a text directly from your phone. Isn't that cool, Joy?
That is awesome.
Yeah. So if you've ever wanted to reach out to us and just say, hello, I like your podcast, I don't like your podcast. No, we want it to be positive if possible. But just anyway, if you have any input on something you want to mention about maybe one of the books we've talked about, we would absolutely love to hear from you.
Or even suggest a book that you would like to have us read and talk about one day.
Yes, we're always looking for books. So if you've got like a favorite book and you're always thinking, man, when are they going to talk about that book? Well, let us know, because you never know, it might be something that we do pick to read and discuss in a future episode. The next thing I want to do real quickly, and this is something we're going to start doing on our podcast, is we're going to shout out to at least one listener every week, or every episode, because you guys are very important to us and we're very thankful that you are listening. So today, I'm giving a shout out to a listener from San Jose, California. Of course, we don't have names, we just know locations, but we do have a faithful listener who I can tell listens to almost every one of our podcasts from San Jose, California.
Yeah, so thank you, San Jose.
Yes, thank you very much. So on to the book. So today we're going to talk about the book Elvis and Me by Priscilla Presley. She wrote this book in August of 1986. And the audiobook was released in 2022. And if you're interested in listening to the audiobook, it's 7 hours and 30 minutes. Joy, you want to read the summary? So this is a summary that I found from a website called Scattered Books, and I thought it was pretty good.
Okay. Elvis and Me is a biography written by Priscilla Presley, Elvis Presley's ex-wife. Published in 1985, the book details her life with the legendary rock and roll singer. The narrative offers an intimate look at Elvis's life, character, and their relationship, beginning from the time Priscilla was 14 and Elvis was 24. It covers their courtship, marriage, and the challenges they faced, highlighting Elvis's complex personality and the impact of his fame on their relationship. The book also discusses the struggles within their marriage and Priscilla's journey towards self-discovery and independence. Elvis and Me provides a personal perspective on Elvis Presley's life, his career, and his role as a cultural icon, while also shedding light on the often difficult realities of living in the spotlight.
I thought that was a really good summary because it was really good on everything that she touched on in the book. So, Joy, just for starters, was this the first time you've read the book?
So, no, I believe I was in my early 20s, mid-20s, and our mom had a soft cover copy at the house, and I read it.
I did not know that.
So this would have been probably in the, I'm guessing, late 80s or early 90s. I have no idea when did the book come out again?
I think it was 86, I believe.
So maybe late 80s.
Yeah.
All right. And I just remember thinking it was so interesting, and I was shocked. I was shocked at Elvis, not her. Now it's crystal clear that he groomed her. I'm just going to say that right now. That's how I feel. I feel like he groomed her and used her and molded her into his own little version of what he thought the perfect woman was. I mean, think about it. She was 14 and he was 24. Just to be fair to Elvis, before people get all in a tizzy here, back then, I don't think it was seen quite as being as gross as it is today. Mm-hmm. I think of like Jerry Lee Lewis marrying his 13-year-old cousin.
All right.
And I just think of older men marrying younger girls was maybe a lot more acceptable and common back in the day.
Yeah, and girls got married at a fairly young age.
Yes, and back in the day, girls got married a lot younger. Mm-hmm. So to be fair to Elvis, maybe at that time it wasn't, maybe it was like it raised a few eyebrows, but it wasn't as taboo, I think, as it is today. So is this the first time you've read the book?
So I read it probably about 10 years ago and thought it was really good. It's exactly the same reaction that you had. It was fascinating, interesting, revealing. I guess this time around I saw it in your library on Audible, and I thought, oh, that'd be a really good one because I've already read it. I already know it.
Okay.
Anyway, so when I listened to it this time, which was just about a month ago on Audible, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. So it was kind of like it all kind of came rushing back to me. But so I feel like I know this story very well. So both of us do, actually,
Right.
since we've read it twice now. This goes without saying. I can't imagine anyone who doesn't know who Elvis Presley is. But you got your different types of Elvis fans. So I'm just curious, what kind of an Elvis fan are you? Are you the crazy fanatic, the type that you sleep with an Elvis poster above your bed? Are you the casual admirer? You own a few of his records, or are you the I can take him or leave him? What's all the fuss about type of fan?
Okay, I'm going to say I'm going to take him or leave him. But having said that, we have to mention our sister Jeannie. We cannot get through this podcast without mentioning her.
Yep.
So we have an older sister Jeannie, and she's 5 years older than us, and she was born on January 8th. Which just happens to be.
It's significant because it is
Elvis's birthday.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the connection, but she's crazy about Elvis. I bought her an Elvis coffee mug. I think she even has a few Christmas ornaments. She has some, I think she has a
She's
calendar.
the person that if you were to go to her house right now, you would have no trouble finding Elvis memorabilia.
Yeah, it's not like it's all over her house.
Right.
And she's this crazy fanatic Elvis person.
Right.
But here and there, you are going to see Elvis stuff.
Yeah.
And she has been to Graceland 2 or 3 times, I'm guessing. And I've never been, and I want to go. I will say this, and I do like a lot of Elvis's music, okay? Horrible actor, but I do like some of his music. Some of his earlier pictures, I would just sit and just stare. And it is true, he's probably one of the best looking men who has ever walked on this earth.
Yeah.
I mean, he was good looking.
Yes,
And
yeah.
I see why all the girls swooned and were crazy and screamed because, Southern boy, lots of charm, yes ma'am, no ma'am, super good looking, could dance and sing and not really act.
And not just could sing, could sing.
Yes,
I mean,
he's a pretty good singer, yeah.
I told my daughter one time, I said, no one will ever replace Elvis as far as, in my opinion, as someone that he just had everything. He was the whole package.
Yes,
Yeah.
he was. I just think he's one of the best looking men I've ever seen in my life, especially the younger days. And are you going to bring up the Fort Chaffee, our claim to fame for Elvis Presley?
We might as well. So
So
go
I
ahead.
guess when Elvis was drafted into the Army, he had to come to Fort Chaffee, which we've mentioned several times on our podcast in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And he had to get his beautiful hair cut off. And they have pictures of him sitting in the barber chair getting his hair cut. And we know a guy, Rick Altus. He told me a story, Angie, and I don't know. Somehow Rick knew the guy that took his picture, and he came across and gave Rick the original or a copy. And Rick gave that. Rick Altus is a guy we know from way back, and he's a photographer. And he is the one that donated the Elvis picture of him getting his hair cut to the Fort Smith Museum, to the old historical museum in
cool.
Fort Smith.
Gotcha.
And so I'm pretty sure that now if you go in this, I don't know if that still stands, the
Yeah,
barracks. But isn't there a special little thing there? Like
There's a barbershop museum.
And then, I don't know if you remember this, a little trip down memory lane before we get into the book. We were Girl Scouts, and we got to go stay at Fort Chaffee over the weekend. They would let you rent out these old Army barracks before they tore them all down. And I remember everybody going, I'm sleeping in Elvis's bed. No, I'll get Elvis's bed. No, this is Elvis's bed. Does this ring a bell with you at all?
Yeah, I think
Because we all knew that Elvis had stayed there.
Gotcha.
So Elvis was a big deal.
And I have to tell you, I was a little hesitant to do this podcast because I feel like the type of people who are going to listen to this are huge Elvis
fans. I know. I probably already made half our listeners angry when I said I could take him or leave him.
So there's so many things in her book that don't really shed a really
not
positive
flattering.
or not flattering or shed a positive light on Elvis, and we need to mention that if you do intend on listening to the book. And so I was a little nervous, Joy, because I'm like, I don't want to tick anybody off because I know that people who love Elvis love Elvis.
Yes,
you know?
and I'll say, and sometimes when Jeannie's around, I've said this a few times, like, yeah, I love Elvis, but he was weird. I said he got weird, and Jeannie's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, who cares? Because
Right.
you can't say anything bad about him because it's not going to change her feelings or her
No,
thoughts. She
and if
loves
you're
him.
an Elvis fan, you take him, flaws and all.
Yes, and we should do that with everyone, and I do. But it's just the book is so eye-opening, and I'm angry with him what he did to Priscilla.
Oh,
I just am. He just
Okay.
kind of took her life from her. Part of it.
yeah.
Sorry, Elvis fans. It's just how I feel.
Well, Joy is she's very truthful in how she feels, and that's
Yes.
how we should be. So I did want to mention one thing. So one thing I've always been curious about Elvis is you hear about his concerts and you see footage of these women swooning and screaming and passing out. I always thought, what would that have been like to be at one of his concerts? Well, there was a traveling group, and they were called the Golden Quartet. Joy, you remember what I'm talking about?
Yes, because I went and saw them with you, I thought.
Okay, I remember going with, maybe it was you and Mom. Anyway, I want to say they come to the King Opera House in Van Buren. It doesn't really matter where we were, which would be kind of cool if it was the King Opera House.
Oh, yeah,
But
King
anyway,
Opera
it was
House.
the Golden Quartet, which most of you that are listening probably know. It was Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis,
Carl Perkins.
and Elvis Presley. And so, of course, these are impersonators that we got to go see. It's probably been 15, 20
Was it
years
the
ago.
$1 Million Quartet?
What am I saying?
The Golden Quartet.
Oh,
I just caught that. So we
I'm
did
sorry.
go see
I
a
don't know why I'm
show.
calling it the Golden.
And I thought it was in Branson, but maybe I'm wrong. Like you said, it doesn't matter where it was.
The one I
And
saw was local.
It's called the one I saw was called the $1 Million Quartet, and
Okay.
it had those four: Johnny Cash, Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, and Jerry Lee Lewis. And it was amazing.
Yes.
It blew me away.
So the reason I'm telling this story is because, like I said, I wondered, what's that experience like? Well, during the course of the show, it was all good. The Elvis impersonator steps up and he just starts rocking out and singing one of Elvis's songs. Now, this is driving me crazy, Joy, because I cannot remember which song it was.
No, it could have been anything from Blue Suede
it-
Shoes to You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog
Well,
to anything.
so I went through his record list last night, and there was like 110 records, and I went through every one of them, and none of them rang a bell. It kind of had the vibe of like Long Tall Sally, but it was a real hard rock song. But anyway, long story short, I was swept off my feet. If I wanted to just jump up on my chair and sing and dance with it, and I thought, and he sounded incredible, and I thought, and he sounded just like Elvis, and I thought, I get it. Just that one performance alone, I thought, if this was anything even close to what it was like seeing Elvis Presley, I get it. It was amazing.
I agree.
Oh my gosh, his voice and his music were just timeless. I mean, I haven't, my family bought me an Elvis Greatest Hits record for Christmas about 3 years ago.
Is it vinyl?
Vinyl,
Okay.
a vinyl, and I get it out every so often, and we just jam out and have so much fun. I mean, Elvis, to me, his music will never die. But anyway, so as far as the book goes, what was your overall impression of the book?
Juicy, juicy, juicy. I mean, it's like being a fly on the wall. She does not hold back. She tells you everything. To me, and she had left anything out, I don't know what it could have been. She lets you in on everything that was said, everything that was done, what it was like to be Elvis's girlfriend and wife. And a really, really good inside look of what he was really like. And I feel like he was a great guy and a good guy, but like so many people, I feel like it was the drugs, the pills that kind of what turned him into the unlikable guy that he became with her. And the fame.
It's
got to his
interesting
head.
because I read a couple of reviews of the book, and the very first review I read was, "Shame on you, Priscilla.
Oh, really?
You only showed one side of him, and of course you never made yourself look bad. You never showed your flaws. You only showed."
Have a point, but she's
Well,
just telling her story.
So this is how I feel personally. Yes, she totally.
She kind of let him have it.
She told everything there was to know about Elvis, good and bad. But I personally feel like it was a tame version. I just feel like there was a lot of things that she left out.
She could've.
Out of respect for him. And then if you listen to the epilogue of the book, she actually says that is true.
Really?
She says a lot of people are upset with me because they feel like there's so many aspects of our life we didn't talk about. And she said there's so many events, there's so many important things. But I wanted to focus on Elvis the man. His good and bad. She said, yes, there's a lot of things that I did not talk about. She said, but it's because there was just certain things that she felt were off limits. And she said she just wanted to show Elvis the man and what a great and fascinating person he was.
Okay, I guess I'm sure I listened to the epilogue. I just don't remember that. So I'm glad she said that. And she probably did leave out a lot of stuff that probably would have made us like him less as well.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all bad. She talked about how incredibly loving he could be, how incredibly thoughtful, and how talented he was. It wasn't all just Elvis bashing. She gave him credit where credit was due.
And that's why I was really shocked to hear that review, because I thought, I felt like it was very balanced.
Right.
And naturally, when you're telling a story, it's really hard not to be just another person's flaws more than your own. That's just human nature.
Yeah.
But
I just kept thinking about her parents if they were reading the book, which I know her dad had already passed away, but I don't know about her mom. But I was thinking, I'd be so angry if I were her parents.
So I have to say, and I'm glad you mentioned that, so when they talk about the courtship, I have to say that was, to me, the most shocking part of the whole story. Of course, she falls in love with him at a very young age. She's 14. He's in Germany on military leave, and she's introduced to him, and because it's almost like she was like this lovesick girl, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and of course he's wanting her to come back to the States with him, and her parents obviously and understandably are in this huge predicament because she is like literally driving them insane and is not being herself. She's acting, how would you say, the way she's acting is almost she never really got out of control.
Yeah,
but
she's just desperate
she
to
was
be
desperate,
with him,
thank
and just
you.
pleading and begging her parents to be with him and go to him.
Her parents, their sensible side of them is saying no, but the other side of them is going, oh my gosh, this girl, she's acting like she's going to die without if we don't let her go.
And a thought just occurred to me too, and we're going to talk about this, and they eventually cave in under the premise that she's going to live with
Vernon
and his wife. Elvis's dad and his wife, and that she'll go to school and she'll only see Elvis, in the evenings, and she's
always going to be chaperoned.
Always chaperoned. Of course, this is all a bunch of lies just to get him.
I think that was the part that made me more angry than anything, was her parents were fed a bunch of lies. Because
that's what made me so angry.
Vernon, as an adult, did not hold up his promise as far as, because before you knew it, she was living with
doing
Elvis.
it because he's a young 20-year. He's in his early 20s. Yeah, he's going to lie and do whatever it takes. But his dad the thought that just came to me is, what if they had held their ground and said no, and then they never had a relationship, never got married, never had Lisa Marie? If they had held their ground and not let her go, would they have eventually been together? Or if they had never gotten together, would Priscilla have held that grudge against her parents the rest of her life?
I think that's a very good possibility.
Or would they have somehow found each other in the future?
I mean, because he's going to be in the spotlight for years and years to come, and so she's never going to get him out of her mind. So I don't know. That's a hard question, but I think there's a good chance she would have been.
I want to blame them for letting them go, but then again, she was so desperate. I almost felt like she would have found her way to him later.
Yes,
She probably would have made her way back to the States and found her way to him somehow.
So their entire courtship is told, and it's in a lot of detail. She goes into great detail about their courtship, and I thought that part of the book was really interesting. And then, of course, the next part of their life is going to be the dating and what it was like to date Elvis. There was the constant jealousy. There was always other women around, and then
and this is the part that gets me. And I know you hear the story so much about controlling men. He could basically come and go as he pleased and date as many girls as he wanted, although she wasn't aware of all them. But man, if she did anything at all that came across as flirting with another guy or showing attention to another guy, then he would get angry and jealous of her. He was very jealous and controlling of her.
Yeah, and she does talk a lot about what their relationship was like, because he was always coming and going because he was doing all these movies, so he was gone a lot. Yeah, so the other part that I thought was really interesting was she talked a lot about what it was like being at Graceland when he was gone. And one part that really stuck out to me was it's kind of creepy.
It is creepy.
And it's in the movie, too. One day she goes up to the attic, and she's like, what's up here? And she's just bored. She's looking around. And she finds all these trunks, and they're full of Elvis's old Army uniforms. And she said there was like...
wouldn't you love to go up in Graceland's attic now?
Oh, gosh.
It's probably all gone, but wouldn't it be cool if there was still some memorabilia up there?
She said there was a ton of like old stuff he had worn in movies, like biker caps and old leather jackets.
Oh my gosh, I would be in heaven.
She said there was like a pink satin shirt that he had worn in a movie that she loved. Well, then she says she went back up the next day and she finds all of his mother's stuff. why is her name evading me?
Gladys.
Gladys. She finds all of Gladys's clothes, and she even puts one of Gladys's dresses on. And she said, I know this was kind of weird. I felt almost like I shouldn't be doing this. She said, but it felt me to feel who Gladys was as a person. She said, I could tell she was a very simple person, that she just wanted to be comfortable. And she said, it was almost like I felt Gladys's presence there. And she said, I felt this intense sadness and longing in that attic of what Gladys had suffered, you know, because she died kind of prematurely. And of course, if most people know the story, it really devastated Elvis. He was so close to her.
Yeah, they were very close, and I guess he went to a deep mourning when he
went
lost
to a deep
her.
mourning, and
I think he was much closer to his mother than he was to his father.
Oh, absolutely. And she said she could just feel Gladys's grief, and there was a loneliness there.
Yeah, there was a supernatural feeling to this part of the book, and I don't know if you're going to remember what I'm about to talk about, but when our sister Jeannie went to Graceland, she did take a picture in the kitchen at one point, and there's almost like an image in the photo that was printed out above the stove.
Oh, I don't know.
And it kind of looks like an older woman's face.
Oh, that is freaky.
And they said that supposedly Gladys's ghost or presence has been felt a lot in the kitchen area.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And our sister, maybe we can post it if we can ask her to send it to us.
Oh,
we can
that's
post it. But I just get chills when she showed me that. She goes, "Do you see anything weird?" I go, "Yeah, it's probably one of those double exposure pictures, but it was still creepy that it kind of looked like a face where people said they had supposedly felt Gladys's presence.
Oh, and one thing that she really brings out in the book, and I thought this was interesting, she said before Gladys died, she was like Elvis's moral compass. She said she was the one that kind of kept him in line and was like, well, wait a minute, Elvis, is this right or is this wrong? She was a very spiritual person, and she was always like leading Elvis, trying to lead him down the straight and narrow. She was the one that wanted him to marry like someone that was not in show business, that was just a good girl and everything. And they said once she died, he really struggled with trying to stay on the straight and narrow like he knew his mom would want him to. But he had all this freedom and all these yes men. They said they feel like after she died, that's when he really started straying off.
I hate
the
that.
course.
And that's one thing I do question God about sometimes, because you hear these stories a lot. The one person who's kind of helping this person stay on track dies unexpectedly or at an early age, and you're like, man, I just wish they could have stayed around for a while longer to help this person, you know.
So the next stage of the book, she talks about being Mrs. Elvis Presley. Well, that was no easy task.
I want to talk about, if you're okay with this, the impression I got, I think she came out and said this, he didn't really want to marry her. And I thought it was this great love story, and he just wanted her to be his wife and her to bear his children, where according to her, it was more about him. He looked bad. You know, back then, it looked bad to be living with your girlfriend when you were not married. And word was getting out that they had been dating all these years, and basically
there was also see, this is where I wish we had read this more recently, but I'm almost positive that there was something happened. There was an incident that happened, like with Anne Margaret or somewhere, and there was word was getting out in the press, and it was almost like damage control. And they thought and I may be wrong.
He was having an affair with Anne Margaret while he was dating Priscilla. She's living at Graceland in his home.
Well, they might have been married at the time that this was going on.
Oh, I thought they were dating. So, it's been a while since we listened to it.
But I'm almost sure that it was not only his image, but I want to say something happened.
It was a PR thing. It was damage control, and I was so disappointed because even though I knew he ran around on her and cheated on her and had several girlfriends, I still thought that he loved her and wanted to marry her. But if you read the book, that's the impression I got. I think his dad, or was it Colonel Parker? One of them encouraged him and said, you better marry this girl because your reputation's taking a hit here. You need to marry her and kind of have that wholesome boy image return.
Because it wasn't just the women. There were so many people that didn't want their kids listening to his music or watching him.
Yes.
Because they felt like his moves were too sexual.
Yes.
They felt like his lyrics were weren't something church-going kids should be listening to. So
but if you're married with children, you're more wholesome, you're more acceptable. It was all a PR thing.
Yes,
I don't think he ever would have married her if he had not been pressured to marry her, is my point.
Yeah, and then, like I said this morning, I just kind of went back and listened to a couple passages just to refresh my memory, and I had forgotten this, Joy. She talks about dealing with his temper, and of course he had this totally unusual lifestyle. It was nothing like it was nothing typical whatsoever. And when she was 7 months pregnant, Elvis approaches her and says, "We need to separate."
Right.
And she's,
Oh,
7
about a
months
kick in
pregnant. She's like fed up. She's had it. She's like, "Fine, if that's what you want." She's like, "Just tell me when to leave." And I was thinking, I wouldn't say tell me when to leave. I'd already be packing my bags.
Right.
But anyway, she says, "Just tell me when to leave." So they don't really speak for 2 days. And he comes up to her, and I think he tells her he's sorry. And she says it was never mentioned again. But that was the kind of thing she's dealing with. And so anyway, the rest of the book, as we kind of wrap this up and get toward the end here, she basically talks about his demons. He would take an upper to get up, he'd take a downer to go to sleep. Then he went through this period where he was after he had all these spiritual quests. He was trying to always gain knowledge from any source he could find that had answers. It's like he was always searching for answers in his purpose in life. And she said he would just read books and books, and he would have these meetings he'd have people come to his house. And it was almost like he was like this, almost not a cult, but it was almost like he was the teacher and people would be sitting around his feet while he
it's like he's the great Dalai Lama.
Yes.
And like you said, he had those yes men around him and only telling him what he wanted to hear.
And he would read the Bible, and he did, I believe, the Bible, but you could tell through the book he was also searching for more.
Yeah, I feel like he believed in a God.
He did. I think he believed in God.
I feel like he believed in God, and we all know that he sang a lot of spiritual hymnals, and he went to black churches in Memphis some, and that's where he got a lot of his influence from like the rhythm and blues and the old black spirituals and gospels and all that. But you're right, I just feel like he spent his whole life searching for meaning and purpose in life, and then all along it was right there before him, and he just couldn't find it.
Right. And then at the end of the book, she talks about the unraveling of his career. So at one point, finally, all these drugs starts catching up to him, and they said it got to the point where he was forgetting lyrics on stage, and people were complaining because throughout the concerts he would be talking to his band, he'd be ignoring the audience, he wouldn't finish his songs,
and all that just has to do with the drugs.
They said there was times he wouldn't show up, he was slurring his words, just your typical unraveling. So we all know, of course, that Elvis dies, and he actually died on August 16th, 1977. So you and I would have been almost 7.
Would have been almost 7, and oddly enough, I feel like I remember where I was when I heard Elvis died.
That was going to be my next question. Was where were you when Elvis died?
I feel like I was sitting in our den. We have a little area where we would watch TV, and there's a fireplace. I feel like I was sitting down, and either our mom or dad said it or the radio, but someone said Elvis died, and I remember feeling really sad.
Oh,
and I remember at school people talking about it.
Oh, really?
So I remember people talking about it.
So my memory is looking at our TV and seeing throngs and throngs of people. And I was too young to really know, but I'm sure it was showing images in front of Graceland. And it was Elvis had died. And it was a big deal. I mean, even for us to be, what did we say, 6 years old at the time, almost 7, we knew this is a big deal.
Right.
This is a big deal.
We
knew who Elvis was. We weren't going, "Mommy, who's that?" We knew who Elvis
That's crazy.
was. Yeah. Okay, so how many Gracelands do you give the book?
I give it 4 Gracelands. I'll give it 4.5 Gracelands. I really like the book.
Yeah, once again, I always look at, okay, what's the purpose of the book? The purpose was for her to tell you what her life with Elvis was like, and she did it.
She did it.
She was unwavering in how transparent she was, and it was funny, though, some of the reviews I read, they said I didn't believe everything she said. And I thought, why do people just automatically assume why do people doubt?
Why, some of that stuff, why would you make it up? Because it made her look bad. Because it's embarrassing. She even said, I was young. I didn't know any better. And then she says, now looking back, she realized she didn't have a life. He controlled her. He controlled every aspect of her life. And until they got divorced. So she basically lost half of her life.
I agree with you, but I also see the flip side of that is...
But she let herself be controlled too.
Yeah, and I look at it as no one else could have experienced what she experienced.
That's
she got
true,
to see,
but at what cost?
Yeah, I agree, at what cost. But I feel like she could have left at any time. I felt like she truly loved him and was willing to endure as long as she did. Because think of all the marriages that we know that people are just enduring because they love that person. And I just feel like she truly did love him.
She did.
And she experienced.
But was she in love or was she I think infatuated? I think it did turn into love.
I do too, because once again, just just some of the things I remember reading from the book, the things that she would do for him and wanted to do for him. I just felt like she truly did love him. Because even after he died, she was, she talks about how much she loved him.
And I'll just have to say, for all the Elvis lovers, okay, I love Elvis too. I'm just going to say this one more time to all the Elvis lovers.
It doesn't sound like it.
He was so talented and so good looking. I mean, I've said that so many times now. And just such a Southern type charming guy. But I just feel like the fame and the drugs just kind of ruined him.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to take away from him. And he contributed a lot. I mean, like you said, some of his songs will never die, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And he left a great legacy. I just think it's so sad what fame
can do to a
can
person.
do to a person.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, well, guys, thank you for joining us. And to all you Elvis fans, sorry if we disappointed you, but definitely would recommend this book to anyone who is an Elvis fan. Even if you're not an Elvis fan, it's always fascinating to me to listen to the behind-the-scenes juicy tidbits about people's lives, especially people who were as famous as Elvis.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on Twin Talk.